A team gathered the bodies of soldiers who died in the Korean War and gave them proper burials. As they report the names of the dead to their families, they are surprised to find Lee Jin-seok listed as a survivor.
생존?
Later, an old man is in his garden when his granddaughter tells him he got a call from the army headquarters. He learns that a body identified as Lee Jin-seok has been found. Confused, he confirms that he is Lee Jin-seok and asks if they have found Lee Jin-tae. The operator explains it was a mistake, says they haven't, and ends the call. Jin-seok decides to go out and ask his granddaughter to make herself ready and drive the car. Before he leaves, he looks at an old photo of his mother and brother, whom he has been searching for. He then takes out a box of shoes, holding them as memories of the past. In a flashback, Jin-tae is working, calling out for customers who need a shoe shine, while his younger brother Jin-seok playfully mocks him from behind. When Jin-tae notices, he chases him, and they laugh and play together. As they pass a shoe store, a pair of shoes catches their attention, and they admire them. Jin-tae then gives Jin-seok a silver pen, making him happy. Excited, they ran off to buy ice cream. When the train arrives, they rush to catch it, with Jin-seok so focused that he even ignores his friend Young-seok. When they arrive in their village, Young-shin is preparing food, but Jin-tae and Jin-seok are already hungry. Jin-tae asks where she got the barley, and she explains that she received it for joining the National Correction League. Jin-tae tells her to close the shop, reminding her that their father is waiting for them. That night, they visit their father's grave, where Jin-seok introduces Young-shin to him. Later, when no one is around, Young-shin gives Jin-tae a skirt as a gift and kisses him. That evening, the family spends time together, sharing dinner and playing with the younger sibling near the water. Meanwhile, Jin-tae's mother and Young-shin take a moment to talk about their situation, but soon join the others to enjoy the night. The next day, while Jin-tae is working, some kids ask if he plans to sell the shoes he is fixing. Suddenly, Jin-seok rushes in, shouting that a war has started. Just then, soldiers storm the area, announcing that North Korea has attacked South Korea and confirming that they are retreating. That night, Young-shin is packing, getting ready to leave town, but Jin-tae arrives and assures her they will return, saying there's no need to pack. This leads to an argument as she insists that no one knows what will happen next. She worries about losing her shop and fears Jin-tae might be drafted. He brushes it off, joking that the army wouldn't need a shoe shiner. Before they can leave, they see an explosion in a nearby town. Realizing the danger, they quickly escape with Jin-seok and their younger sibling. The next day, tensions rise between civilians and soldiers as people desperately try to board a train. The soldiers block them, announcing that civilians are not allowed on. Meanwhile, Jin-tae searches for a pharmacy and comes across a group of civilians preparing to resist the North Korean forces. Jin-seok returns, telling his family the train is impossible to board. Young-shin asks about Jin-tae, and he explains that he went to get medicine. Suddenly, soldiers arrive, announcing all men between 18 and 30 must go.
18세에서 30세까지 남자들은 앞으로 좀 나와주십시오.
Despite their mother's protests, they take Jin-seok away. Jin-tae arrives too late and rushes to the train station. Pushing through a packed carriage, he's blocked by soldiers but forces his way through. He reaches Jin-seok, but as they try to escape, more soldiers overpower him. He pleads, explaining his brother's heart condition, but they ignore him. The train departs, separating them from their family. Jin-tae promises his mother to protect Jin-seok. Their mother and Young-shin break down as the train carries the brothers away. On the battlefield, chaos reigns, bodies scattered everywhere. When names are called, Jin-tae pleads to stay with Jin-seok. Desperate, he promises to teach him to fight, and they are allowed to stay together. Their superior orders them to defend the Nakdong River, warning that retreat means execution. Soldiers receive paper to write their wills before battle. A soldier, Yongman, approaches Jin-tae and Jin-seok, surprised they are brothers since only one family member should be enlisted. While eating, sudden gunfire erupts, throwing the camp into chaos. Jin-seok is hit and wounded. Jin-tae rushes for medical aid while Jin-seok, overwhelmed, struggles to shoot and tries to escape. Soldiers fight and fall around him. Jin-tae returns just in time, shielding Jin-seok and tending to his wound. Jin-seok eventually regains consciousness. Jin-tae pleads with his superior to send Jin-seok to a hospital, even offering to join the special forces and handle bombs. His superior refuses, saying many soldiers are in the same situation, and urges him to fight for his country. Later, as Jin-seok writes his will, Jin-tae rips the paper, telling him wills are for the dying and he must stay strong. Jin-seok wishes it were all just a dream, but Jin-tae reassures him they will be fine. Jin-tae volunteers to plant explosives near the enemy, while others hesitate. Suddenly, Sung-chul is shot, triggering an intense gunfight. In panic, he steps on an explosive, causing a blast that severs his leg. The squad rushes to help as Jin-tae continues fighting, despite orders to retreat. Eventually, they carry Seung-chul to the medical tent, where he is critically injured. Frustrated, Jin Seok questions why Jin Tae volunteered when he wasn't on the list and demands he never do it again. Jin Tae agrees without hesitation. Weak from hunger and thirst, the soldiers sit in silence. Jin Seok longs for home, while Jin Tae reassures him their uncle will take care of the family. Meanwhile, Seung-chul's untreated wound becomes infested with maggots. Tensions rise as soldiers fight over food. In despair, Seung-chul suddenly shoots Jin Tae, suggesting they fight back. Their superior dismisses the idea at first, but Jin Tae persuades him, arguing they have nothing left to lose. One by one, the soldiers agree, rallying behind his plan. As they prepare, Jin Seok asks to join, but is denied. His superior insists Jin Tae beg to keep him out of it. Left with no choice, Jin Seok watches them depart. At night, they attack, killing enemy soldiers. Gunfire erupts, and Jin Tae charges into the enemy bunker, taking down everyone in his path. He pours gasoline over the enemy camp, throws a bomb, and runs as it explodes. Afterward, while others celebrate, Jin Seok searches for Jin Tae and angrily confronts him for taking risks just to protect him. Jin Tae insists it's because he's young. Jin Seok declares they will live or die together, warning he won't forgive him if he does it again. Jin Tae promises he won't die until Jin Seok gets home safely. At that moment, their superior arrives with good news. The U.S. has come to support them, lifting spirits. He hands Jin Tae a flag, instructing him to wave it on Map Baekdu near the Chinese border. The soldiers cheer and celebrate. Later, Jin Tae speaks at a press conference. When asked why two brothers from the same family were chosen, he responds that it is to support the army and protect their country. Meanwhile, Jin Seok approaches Jin Tae, asking if he wants to send a message to their family in a letter, but Jin Tae, busy in his new role, dismisses him. Later, after eating, a drunk Jin Tae gives Jin Seok chocolate and reassures him that in just a few days, he will place the flag on Mount Baekdu. However, Jin Seok remains silent, unhappy with his brother's attitude. That night, Jin Seok tells Jin Tae he's worried about him, noticing his strange behavior. He urges him to forget about the medal and focus on staying alive. He also reminds him that Jae Tae's wedding is in 2 days and asks him to think about Young Shin and their family. In Pyongyang, North Korea, a fierce battle breaks out, where a gunshot is everywhere. Jin Tae leads his soldiers in battle, fighting and killing enemies. He climbs to the rooftop and takes out several opponents from above. When he heads down to capture the enemy commander, Jin Seok tries to stop him, reminding him it's not their mission, but Jin Tae ignores him and keeps going. Meanwhile, Jin Tae successfully captures the enemy commander, but Yongman is killed in the process. Meanwhile, their superior orders them to keep moving forward and hopes that everyone stays safe and alive. Later, Jin Seok blames Jin Tae for Yongman's death. Afterward, the civilians are slaughtered by communist forces. Then the soldiers collect the dead bodies of the civilians. Suddenly, an explosion shakes the area, which is trapped by the communists, leaving the soldiers wounded. The soldiers decide to push forward, attacking their enemies with full force. Jin Tae leads the charge, taking down most of the enemies as they gain control. Jin Seok watches in shock as his brother ruthlessly kills in large numbers, leaving him panicked. The next morning, Jin Tae's team captures the remaining communist soldiers. To Jin Seok's surprise, he finds his friend Yong Seok among them. Yong Seok, in tears, explains that he was forced to join the North Korean army. Moved, Jin Seok gives him water. Jin Tae orders a report stating that all enemies were killed in battle, but Jin Seok refuses, arguing that Yong Seok was like their brother. Unmoved, Jin Tae commands the soldiers to kill the communists. Jin Seok tries to resist, but it is beyond his control. Frustrated, Jin Seok warns Jin Tae that he will report him for killing unarmed soldiers, saying they are no better than the communists if they kill civilians. Instead of being executed, the prisoners are taken captive. Later, Yong Seok privately tells Jin Seok that his mother is waiting for him, but is very sick. He also shares that Young Shin is struggling, taking care of everyone while attending rallies all day just to get food. Despite the hardships, he reassures Jin Seok that things might improve. Meanwhile, Jin Tae and his soldiers force the communist prisoners to fight for entertainment. Unsatisfied, Jin Tae steps in, kicking them. Jin Seok intervenes and fights one of the prisoners, who struggles to keep up and loses. The next day, they are told victory is near, bringing joy to the soldiers, but Jin Tae remains unsure. Later, his superior announces that he will receive the Medal of Honor for capturing the enemy commander alive. Jin Tae tells Jin Seok he can finally go home and return to school, but Jin Seok refuses, saying he wants nothing from him. Jin Tae insists he needs the medal to send him home, but Jin Seok remains unmoved and rejects his plan. Frustrated, Jin Tae slaps him, telling him he is their family's only hope. Unexpectedly, China enters the battle with hundreds of thousands of troops. As the Chinese forces begin their attack, chaos erupts. The prisoners try to escape. One takes a soldier hostage but is quickly shot by Jin Tae, who then kills the remaining prisoners, including Yong-shuk.
용서가! 용서가!
Furious, Jin-seok attacks him, but the other soldiers step in to stop the fight. Afterward, Jin-tae receives the Medal of Honor for his bravery. He asks a soldier where Jin-seok is, and the soldier tells him that Jin-seok has left to see their mother because she is sick. Jin-seok arrives at his mother's house, looking for her, but finds Young-shin instead. She reassures him that their mother is feeling better and has gone to work. She then asks about Jin-tae, and Jin-seok tells her he is fine. While they talk, a group of men suddenly arrive and forcibly take Young-shin, suspecting she has ties to the communists. Jin-seok tries to stop them but is captured as well. Jin-seok is dragged to a building where communists are being interrogated. Meanwhile, soldiers prepare to execute Young-shin, but Jin-tae intervenes just in time to stop them. They accuse her of signing up for the communists, but she explains she only did it to get food. Suddenly, Jin-seok joins the conflict, aiming his gun at the soldiers. Amid the tension, a prisoner tries to escape, triggering a chaotic shootout. Accidentally, Young-shin is killed, and both brothers are arrested. Afterward, Jin-seok silently blames himself for Young-shin's death. Meanwhile, Jin-tae's superior accuses him of shooting an anti-communist Federation member. Jin-tae pleads for his brother's release and tries to make a deal with his former boss to free him, but his superior refuses and orders the soldiers to lock him up. At that moment, an explosion hits the area. In the chaos, Jin-tae tries to get his superior to give orders, but he is unable to respond. Jin-tae quickly tries to save his brother, but an explosion knocks him unconscious. When he wakes up, he finds the silver pen he once gave Jin-seok and assumes his brother died in the fire. Frustrated, he kills his superior commander before being captured by soldiers. Afterward, Jin-seok is now recovering in a military hospital after being rescued by Uncle Yang. Uncle Yang gives him a letter, one that Jin-tae had written to their family. Meanwhile, Jin-seok is interrogated by soldiers who inform him that his brother has joined the communist side, calling it a serious issue. They explain that Jin-tae will be used as a propaganda tool. Jin-seok defends his brother, insisting that Jin-tae doesn't know about communism or democracy. However, the soldiers don't believe him and continue to suspect Jin-tae. Frustrated, Jin-seok angrily responds that he no longer cares about his brother. That night, Jin-seok reads a letter from his brother and, feeling emotional, decides to find him. He approaches his superior and reveals that he is Jin-tae's brother, insisting that he can convince him to return. However, the superior refuses, dismissing his idea and telling him that he is doing it for his brother, not for the country. Meanwhile, Jin-seok escapes and runs toward the enemy unit. He meets a soldier, introduces himself as Jin-tae's brother, and asks to see him. While one soldier makes a phone call to Jin-tae, they tell Jin-seok that his brother is dead. Hearing this, Jin-seok loses control and tries to argue, making the soldiers suspicious that he is a spy. Later, as one of them escorts him to the flag unit, an air attack suddenly strikes. Later, Jin-seok finally finds his brother, but Jin-tae doesn't recognize him and attacks. Just as he is about to shoot, another soldier stabs him. Jin-tae fights back and kills his attacker, but is badly wounded. Jin-seok tries to help, but he is shot in the leg. Jin-seok begs Jin-tae, reminding him of their childhood dreams and promises. Finally, Jin-tae recognizes him. He tells Jin-seok to run. Jin-seok refuses to leave his brother behind, but Jin-tae hands him the silver pen and makes him promise to survive. With tears in his eyes, Jin-seok finally escapes. Then Jin-tae takes control of a machine gun, covering his brother's retreat. He fights bravely until he is overwhelmed and killed. In the present, Jin-seok stands before his brother's remains, tears streaming down his face as he speaks to him one last time. At the end, Jin-seok returns home to his mother and Young-shin's siblings. He finds the shoes Jin-tae made for him and promises to return to school, keeping his brother's wish.